Breaking news. So they said that the water supply in U.S. had been attacked by the Iranians. And I told you that you should know by now that the system they were under is an Iranian system. That's why you see the numbers of Muslims rising throughout the world and America, and they're not doing anything about it. So they're all working together. They are from the same bloodline of Japhet. And this goes all the way to the book of Judith, when she had to save her people because they cut the water supply, and the people were in desperate need because they didn't want to see their children, and the animals were going to die, the children were going to die. So they wanted to surrender because this is a way for people to surrender their rights. So this is not new. So take the time to read the story of Judith, because this goes all the way to the scripture. They always do this. They always mess with the water supplies, because without water, there's no life. When they say that there's nothing new under the sun, there isn't, because everything just repeats itself. Same old devil, old tricks, same old tricks, right? So this is the book of Judith 7, and it tells you right here, you see how nevertheless there were springs not far from the walls on which the Israelites secretly drew water to refresh themselves a little rather than to drink their full. But the children of Esau, which is Eurasia, and Moab, which is China, those are the ones that are here right now. Russia and China are in Mexico, and that's the military that's coming in and grabbing the red nations. And it tells you that they will see they will be drawing water to drink. And it said to destroy them, all we have to do without having to fight them is to stop their water supply, and then they will give up the city. You see? So it tells you right here, for it's better than being captives, we should live and bless Adonai, than we should die and be reproached to all men, and allowing our wives and our infants to die before our eyes. So what happened was Judith saved the day, and she met up with Holofernes, got him drunk, and she cut off his head, and she was able to save our people. So this is not new. One of the strategies they use, because without water, there's no life. So they are taking our waters away from us. As you can see, the water is going away. And then now they're saying that the waters that we have is contaminated in 12 states.
A dozen states may have been compromised.
The number of cyber attacks now growing.
Hackers may have targeted water systems in more states.
Water and wastewater utilities in as many as a dozen states, in addition to those initial 7 that we've already talked about.
It has now been confirmed that at least 12 U.S. states have been hit in attacks on water supply systems. Now, we'd heard a couple days ago that it was 7. Now, this morning, August 4th, 2026, we heard it was 9. And then just a couple of hours ago, it has now been confirmed that at least 12 U.S. states have been hit in water supply attacks. Let's take a look at the latest headlines so that way you can see it for yourself. At least 12 states face cyber attacks on their water systems, sources say. So far, there's been no widespread disruptions to water supplies or treatments, but we're going to get all the details here. As we are hearing, they are trying to shut off the water systems. Here's another one 5 hours ago. Cyber attacks target water systems in at least 12 states, according to the latest reports. U.S. water suspected Iran cyber attacks include 12 states, and we're hearing that they do believe that all of this is pointing towards attacks from Iran on the United States for what is currently going on with the conflict in the Middle East. Now, let me know your thoughts. Do you think this is Iran? This has not yet been confirmed, but they're saying it does look like they are suspecting this is the IRGC doing cyber attacks on U.S. critical infrastructure.
One. Exodus took place in America, and the true Nile is the Mississippi River. Moses was born here and was buried in Utah. Pay attention to this one, because I'm going to be showing you how much of the Old Testament actually took place here in the Americas. When Moses split the Red Sea, he was leading the Israelites into California. For centuries, California was depicted as an island in all the older maps, even labeled with having a Red Sea. So if cartographers of the past were really mistaken, why do so many maps have this exact same mistake with such detail? Now by the 1770s, California begins to look like what it does today, but can't go back to its natural state due to so many dams and levees holding it together. There are over 1,500 dams in California alone, literally holding back an entire sea. Now, the Mississippi River is the true Nile. The Nile, the fake Egypt, does not match the description in Isaiah 11:15. It said the Lord smite the river into 7 streams. But the Nile we're given in Africa only has 2 major tributaries. And what is the largest river complex in America? The Mississippi. It's the only major river on earth that matches the description with 7 massive streams. There's also many Egyptian named cities across the Mississippi, and these are just the ones alongside the river, not considering the rest of the country. Now let's read about the death of Moses in Deuteronomy 34, which shows us his final journey and burial being in Utah, or Judah. All the locations mentioned are found here. This one puts the nail in the coffin. Then Moses went to the plains of Moab, onto the top of Mount Nebo. So a 70-hour walk from Moab to Mount Nebo. Okay, to the top of Pisgah. Pisgah, Utah, that is over against Jericho. Boom, Jericho, Utah, right across Mount Pisgah. And if you're not mind blown yet, you need to drink some wake up juice. But hold on, we still got more places to verify. And then the Lord showed him the whole land from Gilead onto Dan. Gilead, Utah to Dan or Daniel, Utah. Same thing. All these places are in the same vicinity to Mount Nebo. All of Naphtali, or Nephi, Utah, as in Naphtali being one of the tribes of Israel. The territory of Ephraim, right here. And now, you won't find a Manasseh, Utah on the map, but there's a reason for that. The town no longer exists. It didn't survive. But there was a Manasseh in Utah. Give it a quick search, and you'll see Manasseh is said to have existed right next to Ephraim. And what do we know about these 2 tribes? They were brothers. So of course they'd be right next to each other. Remember, it says Moses could see the whole land of Judah, or the whole land of Utah, from the top of Mount Nebo. This is what it looks like 12,000 feet high. And sure enough, you can see all these sites from this mountain. Now let's take a look at their little fake hill, Mount Nebo, in Israel, Palestine, which is only 2,000 feet. And it's not even a mountain, it's labeled a ridge, a hill. So why are you calling a ridge a mountain? You mean to tell me Moses could see the whole promised land from this little hill? It doesn't come close. That is a real mountain. There's also many more biblically named locations throughout Utah. Moses Rock. They told you Mormons named these places, but that's the cover story. That's the hijack. Mormons just knew they were setting up in the ancient lands, and they even talk about Indian tribes being descendants of the Hebrews. And while I'm not saying they are, it could explain all these ancient Hebrew artifacts that have been found throughout the US. Many of these tribes were at least in connection with the Israelites. And once you start to compare not only their cultural similarities, the artifacts, or even the linguistic similarities between the Native American languages and the Hebrew tongues, you will find a mountain of evidence. But that's a story for another time. America is the true promised land. And you know there's a spell cast when people can't see what's right in front of them.
Did you know that in 2023, Mexico invited Russian and Chinese troops to march in its Independence Day parade? They walked through the heart of Mexico City beside the Mexican army, an image that shocked many and sparked debate over where Mexico's global loyalties really stand. Some saw it as a diplomatic gesture, others as a warning sign. Either way, it marked a moment the world couldn't ignore. Did you know
America's Darien Gap shows hundreds of military-aged Chinese men headed toward the U.S. Anthony Rubin owns muckraker.com, took that video and joins me now. Anthony, thanks for being here. Why are they coming? Are they seeking this? No problem. Why are they coming? Are they seeking asylum or something potentially more nefarious?
I mean, listen, I'm not here to speculate. I'm going to let your audience watch the video and you guys could come to your own conclusion. I don't really want to get into all that, but the video speaks for itself. I think I put up 2 of, showing the line of these military-age males that are lining up to get on these buses to come up here. That's happening every day, multiple times a day down there. So, again, I'm not going to speculate. If you have a more specific question, we can get into that. It certainly doesn't look good. I'll tell you that much. Certainly doesn't look good.
just from a geography perspective, I'll press you on that. If they wanted to come to America, which is here, from China, which is here, why would they come through Latin America, which is all the way down there and much more indirect?
Right. So, I mean, this would be for people who can't fly into the U.S. directly. So what they do is they get on a flight and they fly into some South American country. Then from there, they would go to Colombia, they would go across the jungle, pop out in Panama, and then they would head up to the United States. But this is going to be for people that can't fly into the U.S. directly, because you're correct, it wouldn't make sense.
Fuck is this? Why do I keep seeing pictures of Asian ICE agents? This is not the Asian representation we were talking about, bro. Can you imagine being an Asian person and arriving in an American airport just to get detained by this fucking teenager? I gotta know the story. Like, what went wrong in this guy's life for this to be the career path that he chose? I'm done with Stop Asian Hate. We actually gotta start increasing Asian hate, because what the fuck is this? It's like anytime Asian Americans take one step forward, we take 20 steps backwards. For every K-pop demon hunters win, we got a bunch of these spineless goofballs setting us back 100 years. Actually, make it 144 years, because we're going straight back to the Chinese Exclusion Act, and it's happening at the hands of our own people. Also, the cherry on this fucking shit cake is that this dude, the white guy standing next to him, he's got a full sleeve Asian tattoo, bro. Bro's got koi fish and sakura flowers on his arm, and he's a fucking ICE agent. We got Rush Hour from the absolute worst fucking timeline. We got a white boy with yellow fever and an Asian e-boy as ICE agents. What
One of the reasons that it got known was that there were still some British doctors working in the hospital in Akka who themselves got the typhus out of this poisoning act. Israel apologized and so on, but and this, by the way, again happened before the 15th of May. It's very interesting. In the 1990s, an Israeli reporter interviewed the two Israeli troops, soldiers, who injected the typhus into the water. I don't know if anybody of you have been in Akka. Akka's water supply comes from an aqueduct, a Roman aqueduct, which is still there. It was the main supply. So the water goes into the old city in the open, so you can easily poison it. And two soldiers apparently who felt very bad about it many, many years later, after I wrote it in my book, gave an interview to Yediot Achronot, which is an Israeli daily, and admitted that they were the ones who put the poison. And I think that was, for me, a moment of epiphany, only in the sense that it didn't shock anyone in Israel. I mean, nobody denied it, nobody said anything about it. Said, okay, so you poisoned some people, and so what? That also explained to me this sense of commitment that I felt when I wrote my books on 48, and why my colleagues didn't have a similar sense of commitment. Maybe they didn't think there was something terribly wrong with poisoning the water of a city. For me, I don't know how you feel about it, but for me it's a horrific crime. It's a horrible thing to do, even in war.
The Jews were behind the invention and creation of these COVID vaccines that are going to save humanity now. The Moderna vaccine. Okay, the Moderna vaccine, the chief medical officer in charge of research and development, the person who was in charge of putting it all together is the Israeli scientist Tal Zaks. Pfizer. Who's the CEO of Pfizer? In other words, the person who heads the company. Albert Bourla, who is a Greek Jew. And then, who is the chief scientist? Chief scientist is Mikael Dolsten, a Jew from Sweden. Both COVID vaccines that are now going to rescue humanity, both were created by Jews.
59 years old, in good health. I'm not working in the front line. So my type is not recommended to get vaccination. My type is not recommended to get vaccination.
Globally, did we solve that? Like, did we actually manage to vaccinate everyone in the world? No. So highlighting water as a global commons and what it means to work together and see it both out of that kind of global commons perspective, but also the self-interest perspective, because it does have that parallel. It's not only important, but it's also important because we haven't managed to solve those problems which had similar attributes. And water is something that people understand. You know, climate change is a bit abstract. Some people understand it really well. Some understand it a bit. Some just don't understand it. Water, every kid knows how important it is to have water. When you're playing football and you're thirsty, you need water. So there's also something about really getting citizen engagement around this and really, in some ways, experimenting with this notion of the common good. Can we actually deliver this time in ways that we have failed miserably?